I stepped into the cafe on Oakwood Avenue to kill time before picking up our daughter from soccer practice. The bell over the door jingled, and the warm scent of roasted beans drifted toward me, familiar comfort in my routine. I gripped my silver pocket watch in my hand, its cool weight a reminder of the vows we'd made on our wedding day. I glanced at the counter, a barista tamped espresso into portafilters, porcelain cups clinking like distant church bells. Then I heard her laugh. It was low and intimate, laced with amusement I'd never heard between us. I froze, the bitter tang of cigarette smoke suddenly sharp in my nostrils. My gaze traveled to the corner table. There she was, my wife, leaning across the table toward a man I didn't know. He wore a neatly pressed suit and held a cigarette between slender fingers, ash drifting onto a silver ashtray that glinted under the cafe's soft lights. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat echoing in my ears louder than the cafe's low hum of traffic outside. I forced my breathing slow and even, tasting copper behind my teeth. She's supposed to be grading papers at home. I stepped closer, each footfall muffled by the worn rug. The man smiled, warm, easy, and my wife returned it with a tilt of her head, her eyes bright. Steam curled from her cappuccino, she toyed with the foam rim, tracing circles with her fingertip. My pulse rattled. Who is he? When did this start? The watch in my palm clicked open as if on command. I whispered to it, "Keep me steady." I sank onto the chair opposite them before they noticed, folded my hands over the pocket watch, and dared to look. My wife's cheeks flushed, and she sat up straighter, dropping her cigarette into the ashtray with a hollow plink. The man's expression flickered, surprise, then something unreadable. I felt the coffee's heat go cold against my fingertips. The cafe's ambient chatter felt distant now, like underwater noise. I concentrated on the texture of the oak tabletop, the grain under my knuckles, willing my mind to focus. He coughed politely and stood. "You must be her husband," he said, voice courteous. He offered a hand, coffee-stained cuff and all. My jaw unclenched unconsciously as I shook it, the metal of the watch pressing cold against my palm. "Nice to meet you," I managed, voice low and steady. My wife's eyes flicked to mine, guilt tangled with defiance. She opened her mouth, but no words came. I felt every second stretch as the ashtray's silver rim caught the morning light. Stay calm, I reminded myself. Catalog every detail. The man cleared his throat and retrieved his jacket from the back of the chair. He winked at her as he slid into it. I watched the jacket's cuff graze the table, her pink blouse peeking beneath it. My pulse steadied into a measured rhythm. I sipped my coffee, bitterness anchoring me to this moment. When he turned and left, the door's jingled farewell echoed in the sudden quiet. She exhaled, and the cafe's warmth seemed to recede. I placed the pocket watch face up on the table, its second hand ticking on, unyielding. I closed my eyes for a heartbeat, tasting resolve instead of despair. Opening them, I picked up the watch and pocketed it. I rose, every step measured, and folded my napkin into neat quarters. Outside, traffic hummed a steady beat. I squared my shoulders and whispered, "You have some explaining to do." Then I walked out into the morning light, the watch's steady tick guiding me toward what must come next. In the days that followed, I found myself drifting through memories the way a diver searches for sunken treasures, each recollection bright with its own promise. I remembered our first date, a cozy jazz club downtown, where she dug her heels into the carpet and laughed as the saxophonist hit a blue note so sweet it made the air shimmer. I'd ordered her a second glass of Pinot because her eyes danced like candlelight. When we walked out, the night seemed ours alone, street lamps casting our shadows long and intertwined. At home, we'd woven routines that felt unbreakable. Sunday mornings, pancakes on the griddle, syrup pooling in their fluffy ridges, her humming La Vie en Rose, the steam curling around her like a halo. She'd flip each cake with an artistry that made me grin, and I'd pretend to critique her technique before pulling her into a warm embrace. Later, our daughter would bound into the kitchen, sleepy and giggly, and the three of us would collapse around the table in a tangle of laughter. Our DIY weekends held the same magic. Together, we replaced the kitchen's old tile with glass mosaic, measuring and cutting each piece with careful precision. I'd hand her the glue, she'd press each tile into place, and I'd step back, admiring the way the sunlight refracted into rainbow prisms across our counters. In that moment, her smile felt like a promise, we could build anything together. But beneath those bright recollections lay small, unspoken tremors, fissures I'd ignored. It began with her phone's late-night glow. I'd wake to see her side of the bed empty, the cover pulled down toward mine. Slipping out of my quilt, I'd tiptoe through the hall and press an ear against her closed office door. I'd hear muffled laughter and the occasional clack of keys, her screen name flashing, Mrs. Thompson PTA. When I asked her in the morning, she'd smile and say she was chatting with PTA members about the upcoming charity fair. I believed her because her grin never faltered. Then came the inexplicable receipts. One afternoon, I found a manila envelope marked Book Club Dues stamped June 5, $40. I remembered her saying she'd paused her evening book discussions until after our daughter's recital. When I gently questioned it, she patted my arm and said, "We met earlier this month." I renewed my membership. I nodded, filing the receipt away in my desk drawer, even as its corners stung my gut. One weekend, I stopped by Sarah's house, her best friend and silent accomplice in every sisterhood ritual, to drop off a casserole. Through the open kitchen window, I overheard Sarah say, "He's great, isn't he? You two have so much fun." My wife laughed, a sound both familiar and alien, and I sensed years of trust compressing into a single moment. I cleared my throat, and they broke apart. Sarah said, "Oh, hey. You must be here for dinner." I forced a smile and dropped the casserole on the counter, though my hands trembled. On another late night, a ride-share ping jolted my phone at 2:17 a.m., "Your driver has arrived." I rubbed sleep from my eyes and saw that it was charged to her card. I laid in bed for a long while, listening to her breathing and wondering why a ride at such an hour sounded necessary. Morning brought her cheery text, "Thanks for letting me work late." I replied with a thumbs up, but inside I felt a hard knot tighten. I began jotting down these inconsistencies in my leather-bound notebook, labeling each entry with date and time. I pasted the bachelorette photo printout on the back page, folding the edges so I could close the book without creasing the image. Beneath it, I wrote, June 14, 1:02 a.m. My wife with Mr. Thompson at CAFÉ. Each note felt like a stepping stone toward clarity, even as my head swam with disbelief. My quiet investigations turned digital one night when I borrowed her tablet under the guise of checking our calendar. I opened the PTA group chat and scrolled upward, my thumb pausing on messages erased from my memory, friendly planning morphing into flirtatious banter, "You're hilarious, can't wait to see you." A folder hidden within the Photos app held snapshots labeled School Events, but when I opened it, I found images of empty classrooms, crossed-out pages, and one that made my breath catch, her laughing in an empty office, a corporate ID badge on her desk, sleeves rolled up as though staying late. I saved each image to my personal drive, then cleared the tablet's history. My hands were steady, my mind resolute. Below the printed ride-share receipts and book club envelopes, I stacked these new digital files. The wedding portrait, once the centerpiece of our living room, now watched from across the desk, its frame gilded but its promise tarnished. One evening, I found a discarded Marlboro Light but in her coat pocket, she'd always smoked menthol. I tucked it into a Ziploc bag, labeled it, Evidence A, and placed it carefully in my locked desk drawer. Then came a whispered phone call with my brother, planning camera placements in the hallway and living room. With each piece of data catalogued, each whispered suspicion confirmed, my shock gave way to a quiet determination. I revisited each treasured memory, pancakes, tiles, jazz notes, but now with a new filter, every smile, every shared glance, every whispered, "I love you," held against the ledger of facts I was compiling. Where once I'd seen unbreakable trust, I now saw the foundation I needed to dismantle, brick by brick, in order to build something new. As the silver pocket watch ticked on my desk, I closed my notebook, each entry a vow, I will not collapse. I will gather the evidence. I will reclaim my life. In that solemn moment, betrayal transformed into my blueprint for justice, one meticulous, unshakable step at a time. The morning after I closed my notebook, its pages heavy with receipts, screenshots, and Marlboro butts, I woke with the taste of resolve on my tongue instead of betrayal. I poured a cup of black coffee, no sugar, no cream, and carried it to my home office, where the silent wedding portrait policed my purpose. Its gilded frame, once a testament to unity, now watched me prepare evidence as carefully as one might construct a case file for a corporation. I cracked open my laptop and began by organizing every artifact into folders marked, Exhibits, Do Not Delete. The CAFÉ photo with Mr. Thompson. Rideshare logs. Book club receipts. Hidden snapshots from her tablet. I backed up each folder to an encrypted external drive and copied them onto time-stamped USB keys. Then I placed the keys, the physical napkin, and the Marlboro butt into a small safe under my desk. Underneath, I tucked the silver pocket watch, its hands still clicking, oblivious to the passing wounds it once measured. 1. Consulting legal counsel by noon, I was seated in the waiting room of Carter and Ellis Family Law. My portfolio, thick with printed exhibits organized chronologically and tabulated on an index, felt reassuring in my hand. When attorney Maria Carter emerged, she offered a firm handshake and led me into her conference room. I laid out the numbered exhibits. Exhibit A, CAFÉ photograph, June 14, 1:02 a.m., showing my wife with Mr. Thompson and the silver ashtray. Exhibit B, rideshare records, June 14, 2:17 a.m., showing return trip home. Exhibit C, bank statements, June 5, book club dues charge. Exhibit D, email and chat logs from PTA group. Exhibit E, hidden tablet snapshots of late-night office meetings. Exhibit F, Marlboro Light cigarette butt, clearly not her usual menthol. Maria reviewed each, nodding thoughtfully. "You've built a solid record," she said. "We'll file an engagement letter today, and under attorney-client privilege, everything you provide is protected. Next, we'll draft petitions for temporary custody and support, then move to freeze joint accounts and request temporary orders." I exhaled for the first time that morning. With Maria guiding the timeline, 3 days to draft, 5 to file, I felt the sting of betrayal crystallize into tangible steps. 2. Assembling a support team that afternoon, I called my brother, Lucas, a software engineer with a talent for discreet surveillance. Over takeout in his living room, I spread out my photocopies. "Can you install cameras in my hallway and living room?" I asked. He agreed, grabbing his toolkit. Later, I met my friend and former psychologist, Dr. Elena Reyes, at a quiet diner. Between sips of herbal tea, I described patterns of laughter and body language I'd noted. She advised on microphone placement and phrasing questions to glean honesty if I ever confronted my wife. Her calm expertise steadied me. By evening, Lucas and I had mapped camera angles, one focused on the hallway outside her office, another covering the front door. Elena emailed best practices for recording ambient sound without raising suspicion. My evidence was about to become live. 3. Evidence preservation and notarization. Saturday dawned cool. Lucas arrived with 2 discrete wireless cameras. While he routed cables through the attic, I prepared hard copies of custody and asset proposals drafted by Maria. Custody, joint legal custody, primary physical custody to me, detailed visitation schedule. Support, temporary child support per state guidelines, spousal support pending final decree. Asset division, 50-50 split of home equity, retirement, savings, specific personal property allocations. At noon, I met Jenna, our neighbor and certified notary, at her home office. I handed her copies of the proposals and the asset spreadsheet. She stamped and signed each page, sealing the documents in envelopes marked, notarized, Carter and Ellis. As each seal fell, the ink on the paper felt less symbolic and more like legal armor. 4. Financial planning and asset cataloging. Monday morning, I sat with our financial planner, Simone Harrison, in her downtown office. I slid over the spreadsheet listing home value, retirement accounts, savings, and personal property. Simone ran scenarios. Home, splitting equity equally, though my primary custody role could warrant a larger share. Retirement, each party retained separate 401k and IRA. Savings, freeze joint accounts, monthly review. She prepared a concise report, delivered directly to Maria. Knowing the numbers were clear and the tax implications understood gave me confidence I'd not only hold my ground but speak the language the court expects. 5. Installing surveillance and preparing for court. That evening, Lucas and I installed the cameras, one in the hallway outside her office door, another pointed at the guest room desk. Each camera's feed tested clear, date and time stamped. Elena's guidance helped me hide small audio recorders in decorative boxes on her desk and the living room bookshelf without detection. Back in my study, I created a master timeline, from the first suspicious phone ping on June 5 to the CAFÉ betrayal on June 14, color-coded, financial, digital, testimonial. I rehearsed my opening statement aloud. On June 14 at 1:02 a.m., Exhibit A, Mrs. Allen was recorded in an act of infidelity. By Wednesday, my home felt secure yet strangely charged, every device in place, every document sealed, every confidant ready. The betrayal that once threatened to drown me now served as fuel for my methodical pursuit of justice. Instead of despair, I felt a grim satisfaction. Each step, legal counsel, surveillance, notarization, financial planning, had built a fortress. Soon I'd lay the final stone in my confrontation. That night, I sat in the quiet of my study, the wedding portrait and silver pocket watch on the desk beside me. I opened my leather-bound notebook and added one final entry beneath the others, prepared for hearing. Date set, July 8, 9 a.m. Ink dried, and with it, the last vestige of indecision faded. Betrayal had led me here, each calculated move forging a new path forward, one built not on shattered trust but on unwavering resolve. I arrived at Carter and Ellis exactly at 9 a.m., the conference room's blinds half-drawn in the summer light. On the polished mahogany table lay my wedding portrait, framed beneath ivory orchids, and beside it, a gleaming silver ashtray I'd brought from home. I sat opposite my wife, her attorney perched at her side. I folded my hands over the portrait's frame, its cool metal reassuring beneath my fingertips. "Good morning, Mr. Allen, Mrs. Allen," Attorney Carter began, her tone neutral. "We'll review exhibits A through D, then discuss a resolution path." She tapped the screen's remote. The first slide appeared, the CAFÉ photo, my wife laughing into the shirtless arms of Mr. Thompson, cigarette ash drifting into that silver ashtray. I watched her face pale. Silence pressed in. Exhibit A, Carter continued, was sent to Mr. Allen anonymously on June 14 at 1:02 a.m. It shows Ms. Allen in an intimate embrace with a married man she met at a school conference. Her words were precise, there was no melodrama here, only fact. My wife's attorney cleared his throat. She slid forward the rideshare logs, Exhibit B, showing a return trip at 2:17 a.m., charged to our joint account. My wife's gaze flicked between the receipts and the portrait in my hands. I placed the wedding photo in the center of the table, turning it face up. Our younger smiles peered back at her. "This," I said quietly, "was our promise." My voice was steady, betraying none of the ache in my chest. "I held that promise close." "But your actions," I tapped the silver frame, placed it beside this ashtray, proof of laughter shared with another man. Carter clicked to Exhibit C, hotel receipts for late-night meetings under our home address. Then Exhibit D, the PTA chat logs where Ms. Allen joked about exciting adventures with him. Each document laid bare, no flourish needed. My wife's attorney spoke softly, "We acknowledge these exhibits, Mr. Allen." My wife's shoulders slumped. She rose on a shaky breath. "Michael, I held up a hand. "You don't need to explain pain. I need to protect our child and what remains of my life. I've drafted a proposal based on these facts: joint legal custody, primary physical custody with me, equitable property division, temporary support guidelines." My pulse was calm, my purpose clear. I slid the neatly typed settlement sheet across the table. She picked up the pen, fingers trembling as they brushed the silver ashtray. It glinted, a silent judge. With a slow exhale, she signed her name at the bottom. I followed, placing my signature with deliberate care. Carter stamped the document. No tears from me, only the soft click of pen to paper and the quiet settling of resolve. We stood, I offered my wife a nod. She returned it, eyes red but clear. Outside the door, the hallway's bright light felt surreal. In my hand, I carried the signed agreement, in my heart, I felt the weight of measured justice. The silver ashtray and pocket watch remained on the table, a mute testament to betrayal and to my unwavering resolve to meet it with calm authority. A week after the conference room signing, the court's final order arrived stamped and sealed. I sat at the same kitchen table where I'd first received that anonymous photo, reading the judge's words: joint legal custody affirmed, primary physical custody granted to me, a clear visitation schedule for her, and equitable division of our assets. Spousal support was set at a fair percentage of her income, and our home, where every corner held memories of laughter and betrayal, remained mine, with her share held in escrow. I folded the decree and placed it beside the silver pocket watch on the counter. Its hands still ticked, marking seconds I no longer took for granted. Across from me, the wedding portrait, now resting on a shelf, seemed to acknowledge the new chapter. I picked up the watch, feeling its familiar weight, and carried it to my garage workshop. There, among chisels and wood planes, I began my first project in months, transforming the silver pocket watch's case into a keepsake box. I stripped away its polished finish, sanded the metal until it shone with raw simplicity, and fashioned a wooden interior lined with felt. As I carved the words "New Time" into its lid, each shaving of wood felt like reclaiming a fragment of my life. That Saturday evening, I invited friends over for a backyard barbecue, the same gathering spot where, just weeks before, I might have nursed heartbreak in silence. Laughter mingled with the scent of grilled burgers as Tom and Lucas shared old stories. My daughter chased fireflies under string lights, her giggles a reminder of what truly mattered. When she tugged on my hand and pointed to the keepsake box I'd set on the picnic table, I opened it and showed her a pressed daisy she'd picked that morning. Her eyes lit up, and she tucked the flower gently inside. Sunday dawned bright. I launched my blog, After the Ashtray, with a post titled, "From Silver Seconds to Solid Ground." I wrote about preserving evidence, drafting clear custody proposals, and the power of small, deliberate actions to rebuild trust in oneself. Within hours, messages appeared: "Thank you for your calm courage, your steps helped me see a path forward, I'm not alone." The virtual community became a new circle of solidarity I hadn't known I needed. That evening, I laced up my running shoes and woke my daughter for our first post-decree jog around the neighborhood. The street canted under a pastel sky as she skipped ahead, then turned to grin. Hand in mine, we crossed the white picket fence arch where our neighbors hung holiday wreaths. With every measured stride, I felt the distance between betrayal's sting and this moment of quiet triumph. Back home, I placed the finished keepsake box on my desk beside the wedding portrait. Inside, I tucked my daughter's favorite ribbon, the pressed daisy, and a small note, "For time we've yet to make." The pocket watch case, once a silent measure of broken promises, now held tokens of hope. As dusk settled, I stood by the window, the world softening in the golden light. I whispered a promise aloud to the empty room, to honor each second with integrity, to help others chart their own recoveries, and to build a life defined not by what was lost, but by the steady resilience of each new moment. And in the gentle ticking of that repurposed watch, I found my peace.